in this first video session of chapter 2, Science Life Process. So in this video we are going to see the topics nutrition, modes of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition in plants, photosynthesis, heterotrophic nutrition in animals, and nutrition in amoeba. So let's begin with the first slide, that is living organisms. Now, as we all know that on the earth, two different types of organisms are present, one living and the other one non-living. And living things can be differentiated from non-living matter as living things perform some life processes which are absent in case of non-living matter. Life processes which are present in the living organisms are growth, metabolism, nutrition, respiration, excretion, digestion, transportation, which are truly absent in non-living matter. So we can differentiate between living and non-living. Secondly, living things can be differentiated from non-living by movement also. Like living things can move, they can show movement of their body parts, whereas small particles like atoms, molecules, they also move from their place, but their movement is not easily visible. But in our cell, as our body is made up of cells, cells have some minute molecules which also move from their places, which show movements, and their movement is also necessary for life. Okay. So movement is also one of the criteria which decide that something is alive or not. Okay. Fine. Let's move on to the next slide now. Now, the main topic, that is life process. So let us discuss what is life process now. Life process is the process in living organisms which are necessary for maintaining their life. They are those processes, those functions which are going on in the body of the living organism and which are necessary to maintain their life. Okay. So in the chapter you are going to study four main life processes, that is nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. So let us have a brief look on all these four. So the first one is nutrition. So nutrition is the process of taking the food inside and then utilizing it. So now let us understand what is the meaning of utilization. When we take the food inside, it is digested, it is broken into simpler form, then it is absorbed in the blood, and the blood carries the digested food to all the cells of the body. Then in each and every cell, the digested food is burned in presence of oxygen and then energy is released. So the process starts from taking the food inside and ends up with the release of energy. And this complete process is called nutrition. Okay, that means utilization. Okay, so this is nutrition. And then second life process which we are going to study is respiration. See, children, there is a difference between breathing and respiration. Breathing is only the intake of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide, that's it. But respiration is the process in which oxygen is taken inside, then oxygen reaches to each and every cell. That oxygen will burn the food in the cells and then energy is released. So this process of burning of food and release of energy is called respiration. Then we have transportation. Transportation means to take or to carry some of the molecules from one place to another. So the molecules which have to be carried can be food, oxygen, water, waste products. And who is going to carry them? Like in animals, there is a circulatory medium which carry all these things from one place to another. And in humans, that circulatory medium is the blood. Okay. So in the later on sessions, we'll cover this topic of transportation as well. Now, the last life process which we'll study in the chapter is excretion. Excretion is nothing but the removal of the waste products from the body. Okay. So these four life processes we have to study. Now let's begin with the first life process, that is nutrition. Okay. So again I'm going to repeat the definition for nutrition, that is the process of intake of food and its utilization by the organism is called nutrition. Now, nutrition has two main modes. So there are two main modes of nutrition. One is autotrophic nutrition and the other one is heterotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic, as the name suggests, auto means self. Okay, self sustaining or self preparation of the food. and the organisms which prepare their own food using simple inorganic substances present in our surroundings, they are called autotrophs, and the kind of nutrition is called autotrophic nutrition. Here, if we have to give the examples, we can give all the green plants and some of the bacteria. They are autotrophic in nature. Okay. Then the second mode of nutrition is heterotrophic nutrition. It is that kind of nutrition in which the organisms get the food already prepared by the autotrophs and other organic sources also. Okay. Means they cannot prepare their own food. They are directly or indirectly dependent on other organisms for their food. For example, all animals including humans come under heterotrophic nutrition category. Then fungus, which is a non-green plant, also an example of heterotrophic nutrition, and some of the bacteria also have heterotrophic nutrition. Okay. Now let's see the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs are those organisms which can prepare their own food, and heterotrophs are the organisms which cannot prepare their own food. So in autotrophic nutrition, the food is synthesized in the body from simple inorganic raw materials such as CO2 and water. CO2 and water are used, and then in green plants glucose is prepared. Fine. Whereas in case of heterotrophic nutrition, the food is directly or indirectly get from the autotrophs. So they after ingesting the food or after taking the food inside, they break that food with the help of enzymes. Now, in autotrophic mode of nutrition, the organism needs chlorophyll. Okay? The green pigment is required for preparing the food. Whereas in case of heterotrophic nutrition, no chlorophyll is required. Then in autotrophic nutrition, food is generally prepared during daytime because sunlight is also needed. Sunlight is the main raw material for preparing the food. Whereas in case of heterotrophic nutrition, food can be obtained at all the times, at night, at day, any time the food can be obtained. Then examples in autotrophic, all the green plants and some of the bacteria. Whereas in heterotrophic, all animals, including all animals, fungus, and some other types of bacteria too. Okay. Now let's have a look on the different types of heterotrophic nutrition. Now, heterotrophic nutrition means the nutrition in which the organism depends on others' organism for their food. Now, heterotrophic is also of three types. One is holozoic nutrition. Holozoic nutrition is that nutrition in which the organism take the food inside, then digest it, then absorb the digested food, and then the digested food is distributed to all the cells. That is assimilation. So, examples here are humans, because in humans the same process goes on, other animals and insectivorous plants too. Then saprotrophic nutrition. In saprotrophic nutrition, the organisms depend on the dead and decaying matter for their food. For example, some bacteria and fungus digest the food externally before the nutrients are absorbed. They digest the food outside, they break the food outside and then absorb the digested food. Okay. Then in parasites, the parasitic nutrition, the organism obtain the nutrients or food from other living organisms. So there is a difference between saprophytic and parasitic. In saprophytic, organisms feed on dead matter, whereas in parasitic, they feed on other living organisms. Okay? The parasite obtain the nutrients by living on or in the body of the host. The body on which the parasite is present is called the host body. Okay? So the parasites can be present on the body of the host or in the body of the host. Fine. For example, lice, fleas, tapeworms, some worms, they are living inside the body. Lice, which is present in the hairs of the animals, which suck the blood from the skin, is also an example of the parasite. Fine. Now, let's move on to the next slide. The next one is photosynthesis, photosynthetic pigments, and the site of photosynthesis. Okay. Now, photosynthetic pigments are the pigments which are green in color. Okay. These pigments are generally green in color and they absorb the visible light. Like in plants, chlorophyll is present as the photosynthetic pigment. And what is the function of the chlorophyll? The chlorophyll absorbs the visible light. Okay. The visible light means the white light, sunlight. Visible light is a part of the sunlight, And the green pigment absorbs the visible light, and that visible light has 7 different components, means the 7 different colors which we can see in the rainbow as well, that is vibgyor: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Okay. So the green pigment absorbs the visible light. Now what is the site of photosynthesis? The complete process of photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast. The chloroplast is the organelle which is present in the plant cell. So this is the main site where the photosynthesis occurs. And there are two main steps of photosynthesis. One is the light phase or the light reaction, and the second is the dark phase or the dark reaction. Okay. Now let's see autotrophic nutrition in plants. Now photosynthesis, autotrophic, as plants are autotrophic in nature, so they perform photosynthesis. Now let us see the definition for photosynthesis. The process of conversion of light energy into chemical energy by the green plants is called photosynthesis. Okay? It is the process in which the green plants absorb the solar energy and convert that solar energy into chemical energy. Why we are saying chemical energy? Because after the reaction some chemical is produced, carbohydrates are produced, glucose is produced. Okay? Glucose is the carbohydrate. So this is the process, and if you see the diagram below, you can see the equation for the reaction given, that is 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. Now here the energy is the sun energy or the solar energy, and then the glucose is formed, that is C6H12O6, plus a byproduct is formed in the reaction which is oxygen gas. So in the process of photosynthesis, oxygen gas is released out. Okay? Now, as the chlorophyll is present in the chloroplast, let us try to understand the structure of the chloroplast. So, here is in the first picture, the plant cell is given, and you can see here that chloroplasts are present in it. Okay? Other parts are also labeled here: vacuole, cell membrane, the nucleus of the plant cell, cytoplasm of the plant cell. Fine. And then magnified image of the chloroplast is given. So, chloroplast is the organelle which is present in the green leaves, and in the chloroplast you can see here some green color strands are shown, okay, which is circled here also. These green strands are called grana. Fine. And the liquid present at the base, this creamish colored liquid which is filled inside, is called the stroma. Okay. So as I have told you that photosynthesis occur in two steps. One is light phase and the other one is dark phase. So in the this light phase occurs in this grana part, and the dark phase or the dark reaction occurs in this stroma part. Okay. And the other parts are also labeled here. This is outer membrane, this is inner membrane. Okay. And it is internuclear space, means space between the outer membrane and the inner membrane is the intermembrane space is also present. Right? Now let's move on to the next slide. Now, raw materials required for photosynthesis. Now, when the plants will undergo photosynthesis, which raw materials are required? So, the plants require sunlight, chlorophyll, CO2 and water. These are the four main raw materials needed for photosynthesis. Okay. Now, sunlight we all know comes from the sun. Chlorophyll is already present in the green leaves in the chloroplast. Now, the CO2 enters the plant through stomata, and we all know that stomata are the minute pores or holes which are present on the surface of the leaf, and they are protected by kidney shaped guard cells. Now you can see in the first picture here, now this shows the stomata. These are all stomatas which are present on the surface of the leaf. These guard cells are kidney shaped. When water goes inside the guard cells, they swell, and when they swell, the middle stomata pore or the stomata gets open. Okay, so this first picture shows the open stomata. Now in the second picture you can see here that water is going outside the guard cells. So when water goes outside the guard cells will shrink, and when they shrink the stomatal pore gets closed. Okay. So this is whole the process how the guard cells help in the opening and closing of the stomata. Right? Now let's move on to the main part, that is mechanism of photosynthesis, how photosynthesis occurs. Now when the sunlight falls on the leaves, so the chlorophyll which is present in the chloroplast absorb that solar energy and get excited. Okay. After excitement, it will release many of the electrons, and the water which is absorbed by the roots is broken down into hydrogen protons. Hydrogen protons means H plus electrons, and in this process oxygen gas is evolved. Okay, what I said, when the leaves absorb the solar energy, the chlorophyll will absorb it and get excited and will break. This energy will help in breaking the water molecule into H plus ions, electrons, and along with the evolution of oxygen gas. So this complete process of breaking of the water molecules into H plus ions, electrons, is called photolysis. Okay, photolysis means breaking. Lysis means breaking. Breaking in presence of light. And which molecule is breaking here? Water molecule. Okay. Now these electrons and protons which are released in the reaction, they are used to produce ATP. They will produce, or they will be stored in the form of energy. Energy in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, and energy in the form of NADPH, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, okay, NADPH. Now this complete step of photolysis and production of energy in the form of ATP is called light reaction. This complete step is called light reaction or the light phase. And as we have discussed before, this light reaction occurs in the grana part of the chloroplast, those green color strands of the chloroplast. Okay? Then this energy which is produced in the light reaction will help many of the reactions to occur afterwards. Okay, and because of those reactions the CO2 will convert into carbohydrates. Okay, so this process of conversion of CO2 into carbohydrates with the help of ATP and NADPH is called dark reaction. Okay, and this dark reaction occurs in the stroma of the chloroplast. Okay, the liquid which is present in the chloroplast, this reaction will occur in the stroma part. Okay, now after photosynthesis, now glucose will be formed and oxygen will be released out. Fine. Now the glucose formed in the body of the plant will be utilized for many functions, and the extra which is left over, that extra glucose will be stored in the body of the plants in the form of starch. Okay, and when we eat the food, then the extra glucose in our body in humans is stored in the form of glycogen. Okay? In humans, the extra glucose is stored in the form of glycogen. Okay? Now, let's move on to the next slide. Factors affecting photosynthesis. Now, there are four factors which can affect the rate of photosynthesis. First one is light, that is sunlight, then temperature, carbon dioxide, and water. So their amount, if fluctuated, can affect the rate of the photosynthesis. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. Now, heterotrophic nutrition in animals. So animals are heterotrophic as they cannot prepare their own food. Okay. Now, but many of the animals, they are holozoic kind of nutrition present in them. Holozoic means first the food will be taken inside and then digested, then absorbed, and then assimilated. Okay. So, in holozoic type of nutrition, first the food is ingested, digested, absorbed, and then assimilated. And these animals can be categorized into three main groups: herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. We all know grass eating are herbivores, plant eating are herbivores, flesh eating are carnivores, and eating both of them, that is plant as well as flesh, they are called omnivores. Okay, examples you know much better. Then the next slide is that is the last topic of the session is nutrition in amoeba. How amoeba gets its food? We all know that amoeba is an aquatic animal, microscopic in nature. It cannot be seen with the naked eyes, and it's a protozoan animal. In 9th standard, you have studied phylum Protozoa. Okay, so it's a protozoan animal. And the mode of nutrition in amoeba is holozoic. Again, means first the food will be taken inside, then digested, then absorbed, and then assimilated. So, amoeba, the process of obtaining the food in amoeba is called phagocytosis. Okay, and there are four main steps involved in this. The first step is ingestion. Okay, ingestion means taking the food inside. So, how amoeba takes the food inside? Amoeba forms a pseudopodia, that is the false foot. Okay, it extends one of its part, and that pseudopodia will surround the food particle. Right? Now, as the pseudopodia will surround the food particle, the membrane which is closer to the food particle gets dissolved. Okay, get dissolved, and then now the food particle is inside the cell along with the food vacuole. Okay, in this way the food comes inside. Now the food particle is in the food vacuole. Now in the food vacuole many enzymes are present. Now what is the function of those enzymes? These enzymes will break the food particle into small pieces, and so this step is called digestion, right? Now the digested food is in the food vacuole and it is in the soluble form. Okay, so this digested and soluble form of food will diffuse out of the membrane of the food vacuole and it will come in the cytoplasm. And this step is called absorption and assimilation because it is unicellular. So absorption and assimilation are together only. And the last step is egestion. Egestion means food which is not digested will remain in the food vacuole. Then that food vacuole will move on towards the border of the cell and will get rupture there, and the undigested food will be thrown out of the body. This is called egestion. So that's all for nutrition and amoeba. Now let's have a look what we have studied in the video session today. So we have studied about nutrition, modes of nutrition, autotrophic nutrition in plants, photosynthesis, heterotrophic nutrition in animals, and nutrition in amoeba. I hope all the concepts will be clear to you all. Still, if you have any kind of problem, you can ask. Okay, so we'll meet in the next video session. Till then, take care and stay healthy.